What is going on, everybody? AJ here, going to do a little AMA with my good friend Peter. We're going to talk about UFC 262. Feel free to hit us up in the comments section. We're just going to be talking about all things the card. Peter's going to be sharing as much as he wants to. He's not a tout, unlike me, so he's all systems go in terms of saying what he wants, whereas I'm a little bit more restrictive on what I could say in terms of the bets that I have. I have two placed. You could tell him at Daily Fan MMA. But before we get into any further, let me check in with Peter. Peter, how are you, man? And thanks for joining me.
Man, I am super excited. Like I said, just watched the ceremonial weigh-ins, fired up. That main event matchup, man, just so juicy. So can't wait to break it down with you.
Yeah. And unlike last week, we were on Locke's show last week where there was quite a bit of takeaways from weigh-ins. I remember like for Hera, Maurice Green was a big takeaway at weigh-ins, but there wasn't a whole lot here that I found personally. I know that Dariush had a weigh in later. He missed on his initial jump, and then I know Bontarine. I guess Bontarine probably the biggest one. Missing up a weight class, but there wasn't too much. There wasn't too much going on, I'd say. So I guess that makes the slate a little bit like less distracting, a little more straightforward than otherwise. But I'm curious to hear if you had any takeaways. But I didn't have exactly a whole lot.
Yeah, like you said, unlike last week, definitely where Fahea and Ryan Benoit were very huge takeaways here. I mean, Bontarine, I'm not so sure. I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe he's coming in with an injury or whatnot. But, I mean, he might be just, maybe he ate a little bit of too much barbecue or something. I don't know. I couldn't make it. But other than that, I mean, I didn't really have too many takeaways. I think the main event, both guys looked in fantastic shape. So, I mean, I'm excited.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm not one of those guys. I've been on record saying a lot. I don't take a ton away from weigh-ins just because it's hard for me to quantify how somebody will perform. I always think it is a plus in general if somebody looks good in good physical shape. Maybe it makes me a little bit more confident if I have a bet on them. I remember like when I had a bet on Cynthia Calvillo when she fought Jessica Eye, and Jessica Eye just on the scale didn't look like herself, and it gave me a little bit more confidence in Calvillo. But not a whole lot to take away, but without further ado, I think we could just get right into the card. I know you were talking about Burgos and Barboza. I could just give my quick thoughts before passing it over to you. I think this is like the people's main event. Perhaps you think the same thing, just fight of the night written all over it. Both guys, I think, are going to bring a firefight. Burgos is just a guy that's consistently in fight of the night type of contest. Barboza is no different. He brings it with his, arguably the best leg kicker in the UFC. I have a lean in terms of a prediction with Burgos, but I am a little bit hesitant about the damage that he's willing to take. I like that he took a year off since the Emmett fight, but I think he probably gets his hand raised because he's got the style, the pressure style, the pace style we've kind of seen Barboza get issues in the past. Do you kind of see that fight the same way, or? Yeah,
so I have 2.7 units on Burgos at -140. I didn't get the best line, but I just had to do my due diligence. I mean, I was leaning his way right away. I could have gotten to pick him or even better, but I had to rewatch some fights of Barboza. And man, I don't think. First of all, I don't think that was the right move for him to drop down to 145. I think his cardio didn't get better. I mean, he dropping the last round against Makwan Amirkhani, who is a gasser himself, is concerning. I think Burgos has the perfect style to exploit Barboza's weaknesses, which is he hates dealing with pressure. I think he has a suspect chin. I think his footwork is not the best. He backs to the fence. And, the volume and just the craziness that Burgos brings, I just think he wants this more at this point of his career. I mean, he has that bitter taste in his mouth from the last one. Everything he was saying this week, I also liked. He's talking about like, I know it was fight of the night and people enjoyed it, but I really hated it because I lost my focus. So coming off that loss, I think he's going to be super motivated. I mean, he looks in great shape as always. And I think he's going to break Barboza. So I have that play. I also have under 2.5 at +160 in case. I think Barboza to me is kind of a KO or bust. I don't see Barboza winning. Definitely not the third round if he gets there. And so he could win the first round. I think that's his best outcome. So if Shane Burgos loses, I think it might be by one of those crazy knockouts that Barboza could bring. Although I doubt it, because Shane has a good chin. And I also have 1 unit on Shane Burgos by KO at plus 400. So as you can tell, I'm heavy on Burgos, and I think he's gonna break him. I really do.
Awesome. Yeah, I could see it going down that way too. I my kind of like what we talked about a couple times ago when we did this podcast. I think the exposure that I will get will be on DraftKings because, and I think I do like Burgos a bit more because I think he could maybe KO Barboza cold, but I also like that you pointed out that other path of victory of just maybe he just kind of breaks Barboza down the stretch because he's just in his face, he's pushing the tempo, and we have seen Barboza slow down as the fight goes. So I definitely could see the fight finishing. I think Burgos has a couple more weight or one more additional weight to finish. I don't see why Barboza all of a sudden would be the fresher guy down the stretch unless if it's just some sort of just like one-sided ass kicking like the Hooker fight. But even there, Barboza still got tired. So I do think again, and this is just me kind of talking nonsense here because I don't actually have a bet on the card, but I tend to think that you're on the right side. But yeah, it should be a fun fight. Is there a couple other plays you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I have a crazy play, a little bit of crazy one. I have 1 unit on Priscilla Cachoeira at plus 230. I mean, that was the day the odds dropped. She opened at plus 250. And, man, I was shocked. I think Gina Mazzani, I question her heart. I don't think she has the fighting spirit in her. And Priscilla Cachoeira, I mean, for all her technical deficiencies, she is a fighter, man. She's never going to quit. So I know one girl doesn't mind getting hit. She's going to be in your face. She's going to fight till the end. And the other girl, whenever she faces adversity, she just quits, man. And I think even the losses that Cachoeira had, not counting Valentina one, well, Valentina, is a completely different level. She arguably is the greatest female fighter of all time. If not one, she is second to me. The other 2 losses, I mean, she busted Molly McCann's eye really bad. If Gina Mazzani gets hit like that, I think she's just going to quit. I really do. And then in the Luna Carolina fight, she won the first round. She cut her as well. So both of those girls had to deal with adversity before they were able to win the decision. So, and I just think this fight is a lot closer than the odds suggest. I understand that people think that Gina Mazzani might, just grapple fuck her and, win that way. And it could happen. But, this is a gambling game. This is not pick 'em. This is I got plus 230 on the girl that has more heart. And I think she will create chaos and adversity. And I wouldn't be surprised if she is able to put her Gina away.
Yeah, I can understand it to some extent. I do think that Cachoeira has more finishing equity, knockout, that is. Even though I think that Mazzani can land takedowns here, I think it's pretty unlikely she finishes Cachoeira on the ground. I still think it's possible, but I do actually favor Cachoeira in terms of just the finishing equity. And then I would still, potentially favor her on the feet as well. She's just, like you said, so durable, so tough. She'll get in your face. She'll push the pace, and she has some power. So we'll see how that one shakes out. I think that Mazzani needs to land takedowns here to justify her line. But I'm still not sold that she's a great wrestler. I know that we saw her looked the best she's ever looked last time out against Ostovich, but
and Ostovich is a model, man. She ain't a fighter.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah, because I think she's out of the UFC now anyway. She might even sign with bare knuckle if I'm not mistaken. But it seems as if it's possibly one of those spots where we just saw one fighter come off a dominant performance. They look the best they ever looked, and maybe the line is a bit too high. Maybe sort of like how we kind of see these Contender Series fighters hop off a hot win, a flashy finish on the Contender Series, get to the UFC, and then they're this enormous favorite. When we've seen time and time again, that doesn't always work out. So I hope your bet cashes for you. Is there any other action you got on this card?
Yeah, I might regret this one, but I went down the road and bet Lando Venata at plus 110. Actually, going into pre-tape, I thought that Mike Grundy could be the potential play. Looking at his stats, he landed 6 takedowns against Movsar Evloev. But then after watching tape, man, I think he is much better on paper than he actually is in reality. I think Grundy, I question. He's not really a great minute winner. He just kind of has 1 or 2 explosions per minute at most, and then he stares at his opponents. He doesn't really throw much volume. He is a great wrestler. I think he is very good at that. But his cardio, man, is shit. I think his durability is questionable. He got really hurt by Nat Narimani right before he was able to land punch back and, got a stoppage there, which I think the stoppage was a little bit early there. Movsar Evloev stunned him a few times. So I question his chin. I question his cardio. I think Lando is a much better on the feet. I think he's definitely going to bring the fight. He has that dog in him, I think he's fought better competition, at 155 than what Grundy is. I don't know. I'm just not that impressed with Grundy, and I'll take plus 110. I think Lando might hurt him, might put him away, and coming down to 145, I think is a good move for him. I think he was a bit undersized at 155, but it's Lando. If he pulls some bullshit and gasses out himself and loses a decision, I won't be surprised either. But I just think I see openings, and I think Lando could exploit those.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think he's kind of live for a knockout early. I honestly think that Grundy could maybe be a sitting duck standing for the first 5 minutes. I do agree with you. I do think that there is a wide striking gap here, assuming Lando wants to be at his best and focused and not sort of lackadaisical in there. Because I agree with what you're saying. Like when he is at his best, he's a very good fighter. But the thing is he's just it kind of reminds me of like Luke Sanders, right? Like I feel like this is a matchup Lando could win. And I did still pick him to win and everything. I think he's a live underdog, but I hope that he could actually like fight a hard 15 minutes here. I want to actually see a more consistent, complete performances out of Lando, like the Yancy Medeiros fight. I thought that was a good performance by him. He was in his home state, his hometown in New Mexico. Perhaps that had something to do with it. But on the flip side, he's cutting down to featherweight. I checked out his Instagram, great shape, says the cut's going well. Perhaps he gets, a little bit rejuvenated here. But I do kind of worry about him slowing down, playing to his opponent's strengths. But I do think that I actually do favor him here slightly. And I hope you cash your bet, man. But
one thing that I want to add to it is like the guys that were able to kind of beat him down the stretch, like Bobby Green and Matt Frivola, they all have better cardio than Grundy, man. They all do. Like I question Grundy's cardio too. So I just that edge that his opponents usually have, I just don't see it here. So and if Grundy gets takedowns early, I think Lando is a good scrambler, especially when he's fresh. So I'll take plus 110.
Yeah, and to your point, like I know that Grundy's got all the wrestling credentials and everything, but he hasn't in the UFC at least yet. He hasn't shown to really take guys down and control them. I know that he's, again, Evloev, like I know he's a really good athlete and everything, and he had him in that submission attempt, but we've seen Narimani taken down and controlled more than one. We saw him taken down by Paddy Pimblett and get his back taken there. Saw the same thing against Grant Dawson. And I'm not sold on Narimani being a power puncher. I actually made a mistake on my breakdown. I said that Narimani has no wins by knockout. I think he actually has one, but my point that I was trying to make was he's not a power puncher. And like you touched on, he did rock Grundy badly. And it was one of those knockouts. Like one more punch could have like put him out. But so yeah, I'm not sold on his durability. That's for sure. Was there any other spots that you liked?
Yeah, I have 2 more. I have under 2.5 on Dariush and Tony Ferguson at plus 150. So I can talk about that a little bit. So earlier during the week, actually, I was doing tape on Dariush, and I was like, man, there's so many openings. Maybe that plus 150 on Tony Ferguson, it could be a good spot. I actually took a shot on plus 150 on Bovada. But then after I watched tape on Ferguson, I cashed it out. I was like, man, I just cannot in good faith put money on Tony Ferguson. He looked completely shot to me in the Bronx fight. And Honestly, it seems to me like, even before he lost to Justin Gaethje, there's so many times where Tony Ferguson was kind of flirting with death and was able to just kind of pull away and like get those wins. Even against Lando Venata, man. Like if Lando would have landed one more clean shot after that kick, it could have been over there. And then he gets dropped by Pettis. Has a very close fight with Donald Cerrone. Kevin Lee mounts him, beats the shit out of him. Maybe if there's 30 more seconds there, he gets finished. So a lot of things kind of went Tony's way when the adversity hit. And I mean, some of it is definitely due to his will, right? He definitely has that will. But in the Justin Gaethje fight, he drops Justin Gaethje, and the round ends. And kind of, I think his fortune kind of just went against him from that point on. If he would have had 20 more seconds, he maybe finishes Justin Gaethje and then fights Khabib, and we have a different conversation. But after that, he takes a bad beating, comes back, looks really old and slow against the Bronx, and just gets completely dominated, not able to create any sort of adversity. I mean, he did cut Oliveira with an elbow and then landed a illegal up kick. But besides that, it was complete shutout. And then I don't know, man. I just think that his time is over. I think it doesn't end well for guys like that. He's taken too much damage. He looks shot. And but on the flip side, Dariush is kind of doing the same thing Tony was doing. He gets in these dick swinging contests. He gets rocked. Drew Dober rocks him. He comes back. Gets the submission. Drakkar Klose, man. I was in attendance for that one, man. It was really close for him being put away by Drakkar Klose, and then he finds a finish there. Has a good performance against Holtzman, but against Diego Ferreira, there's also moments where he gets touched up and like rocked, and he's able to win that. But like at some point, I think Dariush will be KO'd badly. I just don't think that necessarily Tony is gonna do it, but if he does, that's why I put the under 2.5, because I think one guy can find a finish here. I think it's going to be a crazy fight. I think plus 150 is a bit wide. I think it opened at like plus 105 or 110. I like that.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the MMA community are in agreement that Ferguson is on the decline. Perhaps we could touch on the Souza Muniz fight as well, but I don't think that a lot of people think the same about that fight, but I kind of think the same about both. It's one thing to lose to these guys, like you said, but the way in which he's been losing has been a huge red flag. And then he's always been a guy that's had a great shin. He's been rocked several times, but now it seems as though like the damage is just catching up with him. Again, officially it was a TKO to Gaethje, but it was just one of the most one-sided beatings over 5 rounds we've ever seen. And Dariush, we got a guy his arrow is pointing up. And I am, before I looked into this fight, I was a little bit intrigued with Ferguson as an underdog before watching tape and everything, the longer reach, the guy with better cardio. But the reality is we just saw a fight where basically it went 15 minutes and he couldn't get up off of his back. And there's going to be more guys than just Charles Oliveira that could beat him like that if he can't work up from bottom. And he's saying, he only trained so many hours for jiu-jitsu. That's why it happened. He's making excuses, this and that, but he's always been a guy that has worked up to his feet relatively well. And even though Oliveira's a great submission grappler and everything, I feel like Tony should have been able to back up to his feet rather than just getting taken down, controlled, and that being the round. So I think Dariush has that like path to victory, just take him down, basically like lay on him for 15 minutes. I think it's also possible Dariush can knock him out. I think he's got some underrated power. He's a more technical striker as well. So I know that there's some people backing Dariush. There's always the hesitation with the durability, but I was telling somebody last night, like, again, every bet, and there's bets that I have on this card, there's ways in every bet. I acknowledge there's ways it could lose. No bet is a perfect bet. There's always some layer of risk to it. But outside of Dariush getting clipped, or maybe he just can't find takedowns for 15 minutes and Tony just lands more volume on the feet, I just tend to think that he's got more clear paths to victory. I think he's got I think he does have more finishing upside of the two. I just trust him much more of the two in his prime. So yeah, man. I don't blame you at all for taking a step back, not playing Ferguson. Because if these two were in their primes, like, yeah, I mean, sure, I'd favor Tony, but that's not what we're working with here. So
no. But
And we could say, go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say that I think Tony will come out swinging in this one. I think the last one is really bad performance, and I think he's not gonna just want to end his career on that kind of note. So that's why I think under 2.5 has some value, because Dariush has power, but he's also a liability on the feet. So I think Tony sort of finish or bust to me, because Dariush has more minute winning ability. So I think it might be a crazy one, because Dariush, he sometimes doesn't use his brain. He kind of, gets in those contests where he just wants to swing bombs. And if he does here, then, under 2.5 is a good spot.
Yeah, I could see it finishing for sure. Especially if it's anything like close versus Dariush, that would just be crazy. We get to see Benny do that twice in the past couple of fights.
Love it.
That was madness. Do you want to talk about the aforementioned Souza versus Muniz? Because I feel like there's a lot of takes here, and I've seen a lot of people on Souza, and like I get it in a sense. Like this is pretty much a tailor-made matchup for him. For Prime Souza, he's facing a guy that he's a better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner than. He's stronger than him. He's a better wrestler. He's a better striker as well. But like, I picked against Souza even when he fought Kevin Holland, because in their primes, we saw Kevin Holland his weakness these past two fights. Yep. Souza is an atrocious matchup for Holland, assuming he's in his prime, but he wasn't in his prime, and that's why I picked him against him when he fought Holland. So I actually picked Muniz here. I'm not betting this fight, but like as the guy that's much closer to his prime, the guy that's got some reach here, I think he's not a great striker. I also question his cardio and his defensive wrestling, but I don't know, man. I want to, I would rather just predict the guy that I have a more clear read on where he's at, more likely to improve, rather than the guy that's just declining. I don't know what your thoughts on this fight are.
Yeah, so first of all, I have, until the last fight, I had a terrible record picking Jacare's fights. Whenever I bet on him, he would lose. Whenever I faded him, he would win. But last one, I finally got it right. I actually had Kevin Holland inside the distance there. Obviously, I did not expect him to get the KO from guard. But to your point, it kind of shows you where Jacare is. And actually, today when I was watching the weigh-ins and the ceremonials, I mean, I feel, he looks to me like the guy that just is not there anymore. His energy is just not high. I think at this point, I think he's just collecting paychecks. Honestly, I think he knows that he can't get to the title anymore. And I mean, I think he is shot, honestly. And I think Andre Muniz, it might be the case of who wants it more at this point in their careers. And I think Andre Muniz is definitely the guy that wants it more. He does have that 6-inch reach advantage, which could play a factor. And I just don't know. I mean, I can't back Jacare at all. And I'm gonna pick Andre Muniz. I haven't bet it, even though the line is actually going towards Andre Muniz being the dog now. So plus 113 actually on Bet Online. That is actually tempting. I do have questions about him as well, but this is against Jacare, who I think is pretty much out the door. So I'm also picking Andre Muniz here.
Yeah, and even like if we want to go back, whenever I like look at fights, I think one of the bigger edges I think you could get as a handicapper, anybody could get really, is not just looking at the destination, but the journey of the fight. And on one hand, we've got Souza's beaten some guys recently, somewhat recently, last few years. He beat Weidman, he beat Brunson, and then he went to a split with Jan. But I'm sure you watched the fight. Like there was really not much going on. He landed like 20 significant strikes. His success was just basically holding Jan in the clinch. So like, well, on paper, somebody might go like, oh, he went to a split with Jan. That's great. He wasn't really that effective in that fight. And then even if we look at like the Chris Weidman fight, he was basically losing that fight up until Weidman gassed, like he typically does as the fight goes on. He was able to close that distance and then knock Weidman out. And then Brunson, he knocked out Brunson quickly. But really, like since like the Whitaker fight, it's been like there's like a clear regression. He's 2-5 in his last 7 fights, but before that he was 24-4. So that it's kind of like Donald Cerrone last week, right? So
yeah, I think that 2018, what you're showing there with Bronson and Chris Weidman, I think physically he looked much better in those fights too. I think that's when he switched camps. I think so. Maybe that switch of camps, and he had the motivation, whatever, and he had it for a few fights. But the last the last three, he's just been terrible, man. Like, I don't know why that was a split decision against Jan Blachowicz. I think wasn't that in Brazil? I think that's maybe that's why. I don't think that was a split decision in my eyes. And Jack Hermanson, like, he almost submitted him. He had that tied guillotine. I mean, Jacare, props to him. He didn't give up or anything like that. But that just shows, a severe decline to me. So yeah, I just. That's a guy that I definitely don't want to put money on, and I might put some on 100 Muniz. We'll see.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, I think I guess we could, talk about the main event. Do you have a strong take here? I tend to think it's a close fight. I ended up picking Chandler, but it's not as if like I think either guy's very capable of a finish on the feet or on the ground, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I like Chandler a little bit more just because I like his experience going 5 rounds a bit more. I trust his cardio a bit more. I know that he's not a cardio machine, but I trust his cardio more than Oliveira's. And I like that he's the stronger fighter, the better athlete, and better wrestler. So therefore, he should be able to control where the fight goes. How do you see this fight? Do you side with DuBronx or Chandler?
I mean, this is a very, very tough one for me. I kind of told myself I don't want to put money on either side because I just want to enjoy as a fan. I do have money on Fight Doesn't Start round 3 at plus 100. It opened at Pick'em, then got to plus 100. Now it's minus 150. So I do like the value I got there. But in terms of the side, man, it's hard because I question some of the things that I questioned about DuBronx, like his quitter mentality, that he hasn't really faced adversity, like Tony Ferguson. I thought Tony would be able to bring that, but Tony absolutely, didn't show anything there. And so those questions still remain in my head. In terms of Chandler, I do question his durability if he gets hit. And we didn't really see that at all against Hooker. So, I mean, like, I have questions on both sides. I think that both guys are coming in incredible shape. I think they're both in their primes. So, it's going to be a war, man, honestly. And I do some of the edge that I give to Chandler. I think his explosiveness and his speed. So he might get the punch there quicker and, with his power. So he might crack Oliveira early, and that could be it. But at the same time, he kind of likes to duck, and if Oliveira like finds a knee or an uppercut or snatches his neck or something, that could happen as well. I don't have a strong lean, honestly. I know that Chandler opened, was it like minus 150 or something like that, and got steamed all the way to like, Oliveira got steamed to a favorite. So. Well, let me see. I think he opened somewhere as a favorite. Let me see quick. I think BetOnline did. But yeah, so now it's plus 115. I don't really have an inclination to play that necessarily, but I don't hate people taking a shot on Chandler. I can see that happening. I just want to watch it as a fan, honestly, and I like both guys. So I don't really want to root for their side here, to be honest. So.
Yeah, that's totally okay. And I actually bet against both of their respective opponents last time. Got them both wrong, obviously. But, it's one of these fights, like, honestly, with you brought something up very interesting about the durability with Chandler, right? So I'm looking up the stats. Hooker actually landed 0 head strikes on him in that fight. It was all leg, right? So, and I know you probably saw the Primus fight, the rematch where he got rocked. I mean, Primus isn't a power puncher. I know Pitbull's a great fighter and everything. He hurt him. Will Brooks, the same thing. So even though, if Oliveira is one of these guys, if you actually like, for people that like look at just the resume, they will see that he doesn't have a lot of knockouts on his resume, but he does hurt guys with his hands. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did clip him, to your point. So yeah, like you said, I think I don't have an interest from a money line perspective, even though I'm picking the underdog to win here. I always say to people and people on Twitter, I see them do it consistently. They're like, oh, well, you're picking this underdog. You should bet him. Well, no, I don't, because here's the thing. Like, if I just don't think that there's enough value at the current respective betting line, because Chandler's only like plus 110. It's not like he's a big underdog. If he was a big underdog, I'd bet him, but he's only plus 110. So I don't feel as though there's enough meat on the bone for me to bet him. and that's why I'm passing. Just kind of like I picked Andrea Lee to win. She's plus 105. Don't feel like there's enough meat on the bone. So yeah, there's nothing back with just kicking back and enjoy it.
For sure. Yeah, I was gonna ask you, do you have any like super hot takes for the card? I mean, for the people.
I could see, and I know it might not be super hot, but I think that there's going to be like 6 underdogs that win. I really do. And this is going to be one of those cards where I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of my predictions be wrong, just because there's a lot of close odds. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to say 6 underdogs win, and I think that there's going to be, I'm going to say 8 finishes. I'm going to go out on a limb and say 8 finishes. How about you?
Well, I don't know how hard of a take this is, but I think this is going to be the retirement fight for Jacare Souza. And I wouldn't be surprised that if Tony Ferguson got cut afterwards too. So those might be spicy. But yeah, and in terms of underdogs, I actually switched one of my picks to Kevin Aguilar. I was leaning the other way, and I think I'm picking him now. It's plus 100, so I don't know if it's like really an underdog. But yeah, so I'm picking him. So that's 1, Priscilla Cachoeira, 2, Vanada, 3, Andre Muniz, 4, and I guess Chandler. So I'll say 5. So that's going to be my underdog count. And my other hot take, I think we might see Tony Ferguson biting Beneil Dariush's ear off.
Oh, geez. Replay of Holyfield and Tyson from years later.
She's got crazy energy coming into this one, man. I don't know. It's some shit he was saying yesterday, man. I don't know. Breaking his, what is it? His student's rib. I'm like, Jesus, man. What's going on with this guy? Yeah,
that was some nonsense that he was saying yesterday. It was tough to listen to be honest. But yeah, man, I think we're just about wrapping up here. Yeah, I think we nailed it. Just last minute thoughts. I know that people want to get their podcast grind, wheeled in for the week. And I think we did a great job. So yeah, thank you, man, for joining me as always. Always love doing these with you. And do you have any closing remarks before we close this out here?
I just want to say that I'm hoping the audience catches their bets, enjoys the madness. I think the energy tomorrow is going to be insane. And once again, I'm super happy to be on your podcast. And anytime you want me on, I'll come on.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Yeah, appreciate everybody. Wishing everybody the best of luck on the events. Have a nice weekend. Have a nice day. And take care.